When you're 2 months deep into your bar exam prep, eating black letter law for breakfast, bar exam questions for lunch, and content review for dinner, it can be super hard to stay motivated. Studying for the bar is a slug, made even harder by the constant anxiety you're probably carrying around with you as you prepare to take on the biggest exam of your life. Well, that's what Brainscape's here for. We have some specific tips that'll help your tired, stressed brain totally change gears to better manage your attention span and intrinsic motivation. And here with that great advice is Fernando Flores of the Bar Exam Game Plan. He's also the author of the Essential Guide to Passing the California Bar and the 5-Hour Bar Exam Game Plan program, which kind of makes him an expert on going the distance and smashing the bar. So with those introductions out the way, here's how to stay motivated through your bar exam prep. Okay, so I've heard bar exam prep described as a several months long marathon, which requires a huge amount of sustained focus and motivation. What's the best approach to take so that students don't burn out early?
Solid question, Thea. So I think that the most powerful approach and just kind of initial step that I have seen be very successful and that I have also, implemented in my own journey after having failed the bar exam the first time and having to retake it here in California in my jurisdiction is always go back to your why.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Why do you want to have the Esquire after your name? Why is that important to you? Why is it that you want to step into that role of an attorney? Whose lives do you want to change? How do you want to change them? Yeah. And what you're doing there is you're returning to your purpose. And it's never a bad thing to return to your purpose. Sometimes in law school, 1L year is really challenging. You're learning what are these law books? They're so thick and I have to carry 3-4 of them in my backpack. I'm having back issues. And you're just focused on reading case law after case law. And then your 2L year, you're yes, you're doing that, but now you're doing other activities, whether it's law review or groups or, you're leading things. And then by the third year, you're just kind of oh, okay, well, that was cool. Let me just kind of check out a little bit. And maybe you haven't had time to reconnect with your purpose before going to the bar exam. One of the most powerful ways that you're going to connect with just awesome motivation.
Yeah.
Return to your why, return to your purpose. And I think that's one of the most effective tips that I can provide.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so on those harder days, when a student might feel particularly unmotivated, do you have any tips for overcoming the inertia to study?
Yeah, studying is essential, right? During bar exam preparation, you're gonna do a lot of it, right? Mm-hmm. But also remembering that you're not a machine. You are human. You're a human being, right? That also experiences the world and experiences comfort and discomfort. No matter, where you're watching, where you're listening to this, right now, you're either in a state of comfort or discomfort. Acknowledging that there are some days that are not going to look the same as other days.
Yeah.
That there are some days that you as a human are going to experience life. That there are some days when things will happen with your family, with your friends, that will just shake you, right? And I saw that firsthand in working with clients through the pandemic, right? We went through a lot of really challenging things. And even then, I helped my clients pass, right? Because we acknowledged our humanity. Mm-hmm. We acknowledged that it was okay to take a break when something difficult has happened, or even if something difficult hasn't happened, when I was experiencing something difficult within.
Yeah.
So acknowledging your own humanity in this process is probably one of the other best things that you can do as well, to say, okay, I'm not feeling as motivated right now. It might make sense for me to just step away for half a day or a full day, and then come back to it once my mind has time to breathe, to relax, to recenter, to reground, to re-energize, whichever one of those it is that you need. Mm-hmm. Right? It's when we don't allow our being to do that.
Yeah.
That continuing to study becomes counterproductive.
Right. Yeah.
So.
And on those days, if you've set yourself like a six hour study session and you like, I want to cover this, and then you wake up and you sit down to it and you're just like, oh my, I don't feel like it. But you still need to get studying done. What we like to suggest is just do one thing, just study one concept, one area, just do a fraction of what you originally set yourself. And so much of the time you'll find that once you get into it, it like unleashes the floodgates and you're able to do the rest, or even just some. And anything that you can do is better than nothing. So there's that tactic as well.
I like that. That's a great approach that makes me think of just, again, going back to that theme that I like to talk about around emotional awareness. Sometimes when we don't want to step into a particular task, it's not so much because you are, not diligent with your time, or procrastination. If you've gotten to the point where you're about to take the bar exam, your procrastination has nothing to do with time management. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with emotional management. And if there is, maybe this subject is really hard and you're really afraid of it. And unless you're able to manage that emotion and shift, and it's like, yes, I'm a little scared, but I have to own that in order to succeed, I have to perform. And in those times where I'm feeling worried or afraid of this topic, right? And I always teach my clients, go to where you feel the most fear. That's where you will achieve the most success, right? And I think that's also like a beautiful way of looking at it in those times when you're like, oh, just losing motivation.
Because if you study those sections that you're most afraid of, imagine how much of your stress you'll dismantle when you go into the bar. Like, oh, I hope they don't ask me that question. But then it's like, well, actually, go ahead, because you got it.
You step into it. You learned wills or community property or evidence, civil procedure, contract, whatever your subject is that you're not comfortable with. You stepped into it before the bar exam. So on day of, oh yeah, I've done this. Let's go.
Right. Yeah. Okay, one of the things Brainscape recommends students do when they feel unmotivated is to switch things up with a different mode of learning, such as watching a video lecture or working out while listening to hands-free podcasts, or studying with flashcards. What's your recommended approach to varying the types of study modes in order to improve your attention span and intrinsic motivation?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right now, we've had a tremendous amount of screen time. So things that can move you away from, constantly being on the screen are helpful. So they could be just, again, just you put on a podcast, listen to, maybe your program has audio only sessions that you can just listen to them, right? There's also ways that, you can just listen to or print out material and just read it, in a different setting so that you can continue to vary your environment. That's very helpful. I love that tip as well. And then, flashcards are great as well. I also have some of my clients, they love this tip, whiteboarding. It's, you get a whiteboard and you just kind of write, test your knowledge of what you know, and it gets you away from the computer, and you're just like, writing what you know, and then you erase it and then you do it again, so that you can really create some connections there. Yeah,
that's such a great tip, like teaching what you've learned. But I mean, it can be an imaginary person, it could be your pet cat, it could be a pot plant as in potted plant. Sorry, I'm from South Africa, so we say pot plant a lot, but here I get wrapped on the knuckles for it because it can mean something very different to a potted plant. Anyway, if you can teach a subject to somebody who knows nothing about the law, that's a way of gauging how well you know something, is if you're able to successfully teach a concept from beginning to end. So another thing you could try with the whiteboard is to teach, but also you could just go for a walk and just recite, okay, this is what I've learned, and then run yourself through it mentally out loud if you want to look crazy, but just get out for a walk in nature and just run through the knowledge in your head. It's just such a great way to retain information.
Agreed. I totally agree.
Okay, so let's talk about incentives and rewards as motivation. These can be super small. So let's say, okay, if I do this 2-hour session, I will reward myself with ice cream or some other treat. Or it could be a significant motivator, like going on vacation once you've taken the bar. What reward schemes have you heard of or even indulged in to help you stay motivated, both big and small?
Yeah, so when I took it, I mean, I love going to the movies.
Yeah.
I love that. It just takes me out into another universe.
Yeah.
And especially, I love Marvel, and that really does take me to another universe. And so I have, when I took the exam, I would reward myself after like, a few weeks. Maybe I'd go like 3 weeks, and then like on a Friday, I was gonna finish early, go have dinner with my then girlfriend, now wife, and we would go out to a movie. And it was so awesome. I mean, I still remember taking those breaks because it was so few far in between, but it was so needed, so necessary. And then I would just come back and I was like re-energized. I was like, okay, I took some time for me. So that's one that I personally relied on. Also, I love being in nature. To this day, I love hikes. And that was one that on the weekends, I would connect with my parents, and we would just go on a walk, check in. And again, I just kind of put it all literally in a calendar.
Yeah.
People are wondering, how did you do this? I had like a calendar, Word document calendar that actually I have as part of the Bar Exam Game Plan program. You can just download it and literally create your schedule. When are your breaks coming? Yeah. And knowing that you have a break coming up, it really does help keep you motivated as you work toward that. That's like on a longer, like 2-3 weeks period. On a day-to-day basis, hey, you don't need to work like 6 a.m. to midnight every single day. Just put in your solid hours, 8:30, 9 a.m. till 5:30, 6, and then breathe in the evening. Yeah. What's your Netflix show that you like to watch? It's okay to spend 30, 40, 60 minutes watching a show, maybe 2 if you want, and then just taking time to unwind, let your mind rest and get some good sleep. So those are some of the things that I recommend.
That's cool. That's awesome. So, we just chatted it, but we just literally discussed study breaks, but how should students work them into their schedules so that they don't feel guilty? Because that's a big one, and that they can get maximum benefit from them.
So breaks are really important because they allow your mind to make the connections of the content that you have been reviewing. Folks who I've seen and I've worked with, and haven't passed, and we've had to like work together again a second time, right? The first time, they didn't really allow themselves to take a break where they really checked out. Yeah. Right. And that's, again, at a micro level on a daily basis, it's really important so that you can be rested for the next day. Yeah. And then on a weekly basis, it's really important so that you can connect with your loved ones. Yeah, right?
That's right.
When you do that, right, you're still going to feel tired, but at least it's not going to be tired from constantly, studying, and again, not acknowledging your humanity. So I think that is, for me, the way that we've implemented that is by literally including how long is your break going to be in your calendar, from what time to what time, at what time, right? Like on what day, and how many days a week, and which breaks. And so when you think about that, for the next months out, and you have that set up, you start seeing like, okay, so I can do it. I can push during this time of the day so that I can get to my micro break, in the middle of the day, in the afternoon, and then later on. Because the thing is, with the shift of some of the exams, there was a lot of breaks provided. So for example, the California exam used to be, when I took it, 3 hours in the morning, break for lunch, 3 hours in the afternoon, repeat for 2 more days, right? So you did a total of, what is that, 18 hours of testing? Yeah, 6 times 8, 18 hours. Wow. Think about it now, like, wow, that's a lot of testing, you know? And so now it's a little bit less in the 2 days. It's still like 13 hours, still a good amount of testing. But they'll do 1 hour, break 30 minutes, 1 hour, break 30 minutes, 1 hour, break 30 minutes. So it's different. You don't have to study for 3 hours, you know, like I had to build stamina for that, right? For you have to build stamina in breaks. Right. So that's why I say pay attention to what your jurisdiction is doing, so that you can, you know, mimic some of those conditions as early on as possible.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so in a similar vein, is there much leeway for a social life during bar prep?
That's a great question. You know, I mentioned breaks, right? In terms of like every 2-3 weeks. For me, that was the extent of my social life, right? Like my family, my girlfriend. I maybe went out once. I don't even want to say twice, you know, because maybe twice, you know, during like December, January, and February, because I was also working. You know, that's an element that we haven't talked about for repeat bar takers, right? I was working, and I was doing 3 days a week in the office and then 4 days studying, all the way through, I think, like mid-January, a month before the exam, when I just completely took work off, and then I was studying again full time, right? And a lot of people have to deal with that. Like, how am I going to study and work at the same time? But that's what I had to do. Yeah. So it made it difficult to have a social life. But I also was intentional about making that decision to pause on that for a bit. And I'm glad I did, right? Because it then yielded freedom from that process. Yeah. So what might appear as like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go into, you know, like a mini, you know, box for a period of time where I'm not really going to see too many people. Like, you know, I feel great about having done that. Right? And then just coming out of it strong. And I love the impact that I've been able to have all these years as an attorney, you know, as a member of my jurisdiction. I love it, you know, and so I'm very proud that I made that intentional decision. Yeah. There is time. You could make time for it. Yeah. Right? But then if you don't get the results that you want, what are you going to do? Right? Yeah. So that's kind of how I'll answer that question. It's a tough one.
It is a tough one because everybody's different. I mean, some people get a lot of energy from being around other people who they like it. So, I mean, those kinds of people could make more time for group study. Other people get distracted by being around other folks. So then they would be a sort of on a more solo mission. And then, of course, there's that advice out there that's, you know, when you do spend time with friends, make sure they are non-lawyer or non-bar examinee friends so that you don't obsessively stress out and talk about bar exam prep when you're supposed to be relaxing and unwinding. So it's all about what kind of, are you introverted, extroverted? What do you need from your social connections? And then if you need it, making time for it without going overboard. Like I said, no tequila Tuesdays. Because that's just not one evening. That usually wipes you out for a day.
Yeah, you know, it's we don't really talk about this, right? It's something that I've learned to talk about in terms of health and well-being. Yeah, alcohol stays in your brain for like the next 3 to 7 days. Yeah. You might not feel it, but it slows you down, you know. Yeah. And I know there's been now, let's see, yeah, it's over 2 years that I stopped drinking. Oh, right? Wow. But I used to, be in happy hours on a weekly basis, really giving my body and my mind a break, and, highly performing, you know what I mean? But there just came a point where I just reduced it. I was like, I'm working through my own emotions now, in a different healthy way. And I can do that. I don't need alcohol anymore, And so it's something that personally, I also talk to my clients about, like, hey, what's going to be your plan in terms of that? Right? You need a drink, okay, but when is it going to be? So that it's not impacting your study. Yeah. And I've talked to clients and they'll like connect with me. Hey, Fernando, I really want to go to this like party or like this club. Like I've had those conversations and like, I'm like, hey, if you need it, go for it. You know what I mean? And I think you brought up the excellent point. Like if you need that to just kind of re-energize and keep you motivated and keep you going, know yourself best, do it if you need it, you know?
But don't make it a lifestyle. You can't really, those two lifestyle, the studious bar examinee and the party frat boy girl, sorority girl, a lifestyle are sort of a bit immiscible. So yeah. Okay, so what advice would you give a student who's having unshakable chronic motivation issues?
I think it's really important. In those situations, I really highly recommend getting support. You know, that's either connecting with a therapist, right? Connecting with someone who's a trusted person, whether it was a former professor, former classmate, a family member, a loved one. Sometimes you can do it with your partner too. You know, it just depends. But really talking to someone about why you are feeling that, right? I've only had this happen once in 14 years, but there was one situation where the person decided, you know what, the reason I'm feeling it is because this isn't what I want to do.
Wow, yeah.
Right? Again, that's only happened once in 14 years. It's the exception. But just talking about it, you know, she led to that important realization, you know, and it was important for her to have that conversation. Now, for other folks, you know, who I've connected with, a lot of it is not believing in yourself, not believing that you are enough to accomplish this goal. And once you start talking about it, you're like, okay, it's just a matter of taking small, smart, steady steps each day, each week, each month. I've done that already. I can do it again. And just, you know, really stepping away from, again, those self-defeating negative thought patterns to self-empowering thought patterns, right? That will allow you, because that chronic motivation is not just happening out of nowhere. There's thought patterns attached to it.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to talk it out, connect with someone, step away and break those thought patterns, right? And then just move toward more empowering ones.
Yeah, because it is a big deal. I mean, taking the bar exam is massively stressful and it is an enormous challenge. And if you need help, you should get help. So there's no shame in that. Yeah. Okay, so tell me, how can your website and podcast Bar Exam Game Plan help students to stay motivated and do well in the bar?
Excellent question. So I'll start with the podcast. So you know, the Bar Exam Game Plan podcast is really focused on bringing you a collection of tips, strategies, skills that have been tested time and time again, you know, over the, you know, I started helping folks pass the bar in 2008.
Wow.
So you do the math on that, right? It's been a good while. And so it's a collection of all those strategies, of course, you know, also adding what's happening right now in really helping you thrive during the bar exam period on a holistic level. So there's definitely motivation / mindset tips that are included. You know, I have bar exam affirmations that help you, you know, reshift any thought patterns that are not beneficial to you during this very important bar exam preparation period. There's also tips and strategies on each part of the exam. Like, you know, for example, what if you don't know, you know, this particular question? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna freak out? You know, are you gonna like just freeze? You know, there's a lot of reactions that you can have to very high stress, right? And so I talk about those types of things too. And I really just try to give you just some positive tips that are going to help you stay motivated during that very difficult period. And I honestly typically, I keep the podcast going. So I'm going through that challenging period right there with you. And I'm giving you important tips, in the months leading up to the exam, the weeks leading up to the exam, the days, the hours leading up to the exam. And so I really try to bring my awesome energy and motivation all the way through in the podcast. And then if you go to barexamgameplan.info, you can get a copy of my book through the Bar Exam Game Plan program. So the Bar Exam Game Plan program, it's $47, super affordable. It gives you attack outlines for every subject. There's 5 videos that really get into every part of the exam, in addition to mindset and motivation tips, stress management tips. You will have a plan created for the bar exam once you're done with those 5 hours. Again, focused on the how, not the substance of what you're learning. So it's very, very compatible, whether you're taking Themis, Barbary, Kaplan, Brainscape, we tend to provide that additional support to students so that they can succeed, right? And so I'm really focused on helping you stay motivated on a holistic level and really leading with your health and well-being. So that's how it helps folks.
That's perfect. Well, there you have it. The best advice for staying motivated during bar prep, straight from the expert's mouth, Fernando Flores, creator of the Bar Exam Game Plan. For more great advice and resources for preparing for the bar, check out his book, website, and podcast. Details provided below. If you're in law school or preparing to take the bar exam, you should really get Brainscape certified MBE flashcards in your corner. This collection contains over 2,600 adaptive flashcards that will drill you on the key concepts you'll probably find in big bar review courses like Barbary or Themis, but condensed down to a super efficient flashcard format that helps you study more efficiently with spaced repetition. And whether you're in law school, just trying to keep your head above water, or preparing to take the biggest exam of your life, these can be a real lifeline to helping you get the content down pat. Brainscape also has a law academy packed with helpful guides on topics you'll no doubt be familiar with, like dealing with bar exam stress, studying for the bar, acing law firm interviews, and making key decisions like picking a bar review course and a law specialty as you embark upon your career. So grab these tools, study hard, and rise to your challenge.